Hey everybody, so welcome back to another Anna Chaos Studio art lesson. So today we're going to be talking about learning how to draw what you see and not what you know. So we're going to start training this part of your brain. So by default, people are taught in a very, how do you say, in a very memorize. You memorize, we memorize. Think about the alphabet. Think about the multiplication table. You just like, 6 times 6 is 36. You're not really doing the math in your head. You're just like, you just kind of learn the song, and that's how you pretty much do a lot of these things. Well, when it comes to art, you kind of break away of that very structural way of learning, and then you actually starting to use the actual, visual receptors. You're starting to use all that stuff, and you're starting to actually process what you see. So we're gonna start talking about this, and we're gonna start going by textures first. So we're gonna go from there, and we're gonna continue going through this new section of my little lessons that I've been doing. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some examples that will actually make some of this make sense. So the first one is draw what you see, not what you know. Okay, so here's a good example. As kids, when you're in preschool, we're taught basic shapes. You have circles, squares, and triangles. And one of the things that teachers use in order to have kids remember these shapes is to have them make items that use these shapes. So the best example is a house. So you can ask anybody right off the street and go, "Hey, how do you draw a house?" They're pretty much going to do this. They're going to do a square for the body of the house. If they're teaching them the secondary shapes, such as rectangles, they're going to go, "Do you draw a rectangle for the door? You're going to draw a square for the windows. You're going to do a triangle for the house. And then a rectangle for the chimney. Even though you live in Florida, we have no chimneys, or the South, we have no chimneys. Okay? And then that's how you draw a house. And then what you do is you draw a stick and a circle and draw circles, and you draw a tree. This is what most people right out of the street would draw, because this is what they remember as drawing when they were in elementary school. Another example of this is how to draw a face. You would draw, again, going back to the three basic shapes, you have a circle for a face, you have a sideways C for the mouth, you have a circle for the nose, circle for the eyes, circle for the pupils, and then again a C for the ears, and then a couple strands of hair. And that's how you draw a person: a rectangle and a triangle, and that's how you draw a person. So you can see almost anybody again, and I even tested this out. These are like the three ones they teach you: the house, the face, and the one that I've seen once in a blue moon sorry, is how to draw a fish. Okay, so you see, it's like, okay, you can grab a circle, and then you put a triangle in the back, and then you put another triangle on the inside, and a circle, and you open the mouth up, you do little bubbles with circles, and you have a fish. And of course, you can use little C's to draw the scales. But I've seen all these. I have friends that they do like kids education, and this is how they reinforce the shapes with most people. Okay, so it is very important to, like, if this is the level of drawing that one, don't be embarrassed, because this is how they teach us the core shapes and the core colors and all that stuff when we're little. And this is probably the last time that you did any drawing, if I may be frank. Because here's the way that it pretty much works. So you have your toddler years, which is 1 to 2. You're just being a baby. Okay, around 2, you have your early education. To 2 to around 4 to 5, you have early education. And that's when you get introduced to like shapes, colors, and letters. Okay, so right around here, kids feel free to like draw and doodle and whatever they want. And then they start going to like actual school. And again, this kind of continues through elementary school until they reach middle school. And around middle school is when people start kind of getting an awareness of what other people think of them, of how other people respond to them. Kids tend to be kind of, it's they're being honest, but they kind of, some of them are dabbling in the response from their cruelty. So when a lot of people realize that they're not very good artists and people have voiced to them that they're not very good artists, right around here is when most people stop drawing. That is the unfortunate truth. Okay. Now there's some kids that they continue to doodle on their own books, and to be honest, today's kids are so lucky because even if nobody in their school appreciates them, they can still go online and find a community that will support them and nurture them and help them just blossom. Like back in the day where it was just like me and another artist, and they always pin us against each other, and I just kept drawing because I liked it, but most people in that situation, they will kind of stop drawing. So if you would have somebody that they stopped drawing when they were like 8 years old, 8 or 10 years old, and then suddenly now you're asking them at 30 to draw again, they're gonna revert back to these lessons back in the day. So just something for you to keep in mind when you're drawing. Okay, so just don't be too hard on yourself. Learn how to be forgiving and go from there. Now let's go ahead and talk about practicing textures. So if you ever work with artists, especially 3D artists, I was trained to be a 2D, 3D artist. I mostly love the 2D concepts. I'm not a big fan of 3D just because it's extremely technical and time consuming, and I just don't. It's just not my thing. So I have friends that do it, and I praise them, and I admire their patience. I just don't. I'm patient. I'm just not that patient. So it's just not my cup of tea, and it does happen. Okay. So one of the things that you notice is that a lot of artists, if they see a texture they like, they'll just take pictures of it so they can reference it later. And they can either go ahead and try to replicate it in the tools that they're using, whether it's Photoshop, Corel Paint, traditional media, 3D software such as Maya, 3D Studio Max, or whatever. But we get a lot of references. So the step number one when becoming a new artist is use a lot of references. I'm going to put ref because I'm pretty sure I'm going to mess up the spelling of that, and I'm not a good speller. So almost every artist would tell you. I know some people's like, oh, using reference is cheating. No, using references will help your work improve significantly, and almost every artist that you ever talk to that's a professional will tell you, draw from reference, draw from reference, draw from reference, and then go ahead and apply what you learn from those references and apply it to your fantasy work or whatever you want to make. But all these artists have studied from references. Even the old masters from back in the day, they studied from the references. So let's start with some texture. So let's go ahead and look at some wood. Okay. Now we talked about earlier in the lessons, you have the thick and thin of your lines. Thick and thin. I'm using mechanical pencil because this is most what I tend to draw with. Okay, so remember that lesson a couple while ago. So I'm gonna draw myself a little box. Let me grab myself a sticky pad. Give me a second. Come on. Ah, so fat. I can reach. I swear I can reach. Okay, I got some weird numbers here. Okay, I'm gonna use the sticky pad as my work area. Alright, I'm gonna split this in two. Okay, so let's start with I'm going to use wood as an example. So most people, when you say, hey, draw me a plank of wood, they kind of draw a square and then they draw some squiggly lines and then they draw a circle because, apparently every piece of wood has a hole in it. But this is pretty much the basic of what we see. Okay. Now, if you're drawing wood, an artist, a true artist will ask you, are you drawing planks? Or are you drawing a wood flooring? What are we doing? What are we doing? So I'm gonna start with just some basic wood flooring, and then I'm gonna do planks. Okay. So normally wood flooring, I just think of the interior of a house. So I'm gonna start by breaking it down into 4 rows because they tend to be thinner by default. They tend to be thinner by default. Sorry, my cat's being extra today. And then one of the things that you learn when you do your own flooring is that flooring on average, especially newer flooring, tends to be staggered. So that way it kind of links together a little bit better. So there's always like a continuation. So this one I'm going to leave alone. And you can look at some of the references on your own floor if you're bored. Yes, and stagger is a legit flooring term. Okay, and depending on what flooring you're using, you want to just kind of add some textures on here. Remember, these are some starting points. And some of them will have very predominant grooves in the wood, even though they might be like whatever the plasticky stuff. But it kind of mimics what wood looks like. There's going to be a darker line where the separation is between one and the other. And again, go downstairs. If you have hardwood floor, go ahead take a look at it. If you don't have hardwood floor or laminate, go to your local hardware store, take a picture of their displays, and then try to replicate that style at home. Yes, Meow Meow, I see you. I see you. You have been fed and you have treats. She's been extra today. And yes, I already pet with her for an hour. She just wants more TLC. I'll open the window in a little bit. Actually, give me 1 second. Let me just open the window for her. I'm gonna get her off my boat. Give me a second. Oh, I'm stuck. Uh, come here. Come here. Come here. Window time. Window time. Go on. Enjoy the window. Okay. There. Now she's happy. Sorry about that. Otherwise, if I don't, she's gonna start jumping all over the screen, and it gets kind of fun. Yes, I have cats. I have 2 of them. One of them is skittish. One of them is very friendly and likes a lot of TLC and cuddles. And whoever said cats are antisocial, yeah, it's a lie. They're actually extremely social creatures. Okay, so this is something. It's kind of crude, but this right here, this is similar to what you will see on your flooring at your house. So it looks something like this. Right, I'm gonna move the camera in just a little bit more so you guys can see. All right, now let's go ahead and move to planks. Okay, think of like your backyard planks. So this right here, this will be flooring, but your outdoor planks for your fence are going to look a lot different. They're cheaper because they're normally treated wood that's been compressed. They tend to be wider. Okay, they're not as perfectly lined up. So I'm gonna go ahead. This is gonna be a horizontal. I'm gonna do vertical because normally these are lined up in your backyard, and they tend to be very thicker. So I'm gonna go right here. As you can see, that line is not perfect. I've had to do fencing, so I could tell you wear gloves. Okay, so there's the fence. I'm gonna put the little post in the back that holds them together. I'm gonna do my little nails. And again, I can draw this from memory because I've had experience with this material both as from drawing and then from dealing with it in real life. Now, normally you're going to have more imperfections in the wood outside because again, it's an outdoor fence. It's just meant to keep people outside and provide privacy. It's not a luxurious wood. It's just there. Depending on how old it is, you might have some water damage. You have maybe a little bit of rust kind of seeping into the wood itself from the rain dripping on it. So there is a lot of history. You could tell a lot what a texture has been through. You could tell the age, what weather conditions it has suffered just from really looking at it. And again, normally I have references. Unfortunately, I no longer have a wooden fence. My old house had wooden fence. I should take more pictures of it. But the new one that I'm in, no wooden fence, metal fence instead. It came with the house. I didn't purchase it. No, I didn't add that after the fact. I'm gonna put the darkness there. But you can see how this looks more like a wooden fence because I added the details of like the rusted nails. It's not really perfect. I recognize the wood support behind it right here. So you can see that support right there going through. And it just point blank looks like an old rusty outdoor fence. All right. Now, the next one that I want to go through is, let me go. Let's do bricks. And what I will highly suggest for you guys to do, guys, on your own time, is literally go around. You have a camera in your pocket. Most people have a smartphone. And if you want to learn how to do textures, go ahead and look for them. If you go to ArtStation, there is a lot of artists that the only thing to do, especially texture artists for gaming and film, that's literally a profession. Texture artist is a profession. All they do is literally replicate what textures look like in the real world. Okay, so let's go ahead and do bricks. Okay, so it's gonna be bricks. This is gonna be small. These are gonna be large. These are gonna be worn. These are gonna be outdoor. Okay, and again, a lot of this comes from experiences. So if you ever been to like an old historical site where the buildings are like 100 years old, what you tend to see, and I'm gonna do a quick doodle, and I saw this back in North Carolina where the building was still intact. The outside shell was intact, but what they did is they gutted the whole interior and they just kept the sides propped up until they can re-engineer the interior to make it safe. But if you actually looked at the bricks, they tend to be smaller because a lot of these were homemade. So the lines are not perfect because they have been aged. The ground has shifted. So different material. Most of them tend to have more natural materials than what we have right now. Now they have like weather treatment mixed with them, or they have different foreign elements in their material because like if you literally dig up all the ground in your area, you're not gonna have a ground to be on. Okay, so this is like your basic texture. And then what you tend to see is that, especially if it's outdoors, you see that some of the textures will be like degraded or have a depression in it where it's been sucked in and weather's worn out. If there was water on top, you see like water staining coming from the top. So this will be like moldy coming down. The edges are not straight. There'll still be some textures on there. Sometimes if they're like, depending on the region, sometimes there'll be more of a white kind of brick versus a reddish classic brick that most of us are accustomed to. But it's what they had available at the time. So keep that in mind. And I'm just adding little textures on there. Some areas are going to have deeper grooves from the wear and tear of time. So like here where the water is, there's going to be probably deeper grooves from the water wearing it down. Every time water goes by, it takes some of the particles more and more and more as it goes by. You see this little wear and tear right there. There we go. So you can see right there, there's a texture difference. Sometimes it's smoother, just depends how much water goes down in that section. And again, they're not going to be perfect because if it's like 100 years ago, you have different techniques, different materials, different tools. So a lot of them were like hand chiseled or hand carved. They're not machine made like a lot of the stuff we're seeing today. So it's just folks plopping bricks. And sometimes you will see like there'll be like these little like depressions in them, like especially like if it's like on the ground. So if you're on the ground, you're into a city, they'll have like a handmade brick. And I see this all the time here in Texas. They'll have like a little plaque area and then they will have like somebody's name that's worn off from people walking on it, and then there's like a slew of them everywhere. So this is closer to like a memorial walkway that you see. And then you want to add like little speckles and stuff, kind of letting your audience knows that hey, this is possibly stone. And a lot of this, again, I can draw this from the top of my head because I've studied a lot of these textures on my own in my earlier career. And the main reason why I did this because I used to draw comics. And as I got more into tech, digital art, I knew when to draw texture and when I was going to apply texture via digital, just to kind of save in time when you're creating comics showing a timeline. So you have to kind of learn how to make the fastest ways to do stuff. That's what even today when you look at some of your favorite animes, like I was watching my uncle from another world the other day. If you look at a lot of the backgrounds in some of the modern animes, they don't even bother to hide it. They'll just take a photo of a city, render a filter on it, and then that's it. All right, so this is pretty much small worn brick. Now let's go ahead and do more machine modern brick. And this one is going to be more. Okay, the lines tend to be a little bit crispier. Normally you tend to see the material in between what they use. The cement, you can see a little bit worn in between. Okay, this is most of what you see right there in between. You're also going to see more of where the cut is from the machine. Now, if this is a newer wall, it's going to look kind of like this. But if it's like an older wall that's been outside for a while, you might see that the where the material is going to be moldier from where like the rain is, humidity has stored. So it's mostly going to look a lot darker if it's been outside. It's just with age it happens unless they're using a special blend where it doesn't allow it to pick up specific material, but you're going to see more of this. And again, this is different types of brick. So this right here is more of the familiar red brick, modern. This is more of the old white bricks. And again, if you travel around the country or you get a chance to like visit, I love visiting historical sites. And one of my favorite things is just to not only look at the tools, but I always make a lot of mental notes on the textures. I take a lot of photos. There's some of my friends who have me on social media. They know I take a lot of photos and I take a ton of like little things. Because sometimes my friends borrow my photos and they'll ask me like, "Hey, can I use this?" And it's like, "Yes, please, by all means, go ahead, use it for your project because I know it helps them out." And trust me, when you're doing art for like out of thin air, texture, having a really robust textural library, especially do 3D work, it's a must. Hence why there is like literally web pages dedicated to only providing texture maps and like just high quality photographs so that way they can get the texture that they need. So that is bricks. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at one more familiar texture, and that is quartz or marble. Marble. So marble is actually it's kind of a complicated because it depends on the type of marble they're using, the color, and the tone. But right now, for most part, this is, and I have marble countertops in my house. Again, it came with the house. I'm not a big bougie person that needs finishes, but I like having a nice kitchen because I do spend a lot of time there with my family. But it's mostly the open concept. I don't care if it's marble or not. I just like to have space for my friends to come and sit down and talk to me. Okay, so here is pretty much marble in a nutshell. There is a scientific reason for this, but you'll see that it'll have like one main point on average or a couple main like points in it, and then it just kind of cracks out. There is a difference between the synthetic marble and real marble. Some people like it where it's like clean. Some people like the cracks on it. Other people don't. Other people just want like the most pristine slab that they can get. And some of the cracks are very very light. Like they're just extremely light. But then some of them are extremely predominant, and that's what gives it the really unique texture that you see on the marble. Normally, they tend to go into like one or two directions because if you ever look at most of the stones, they tend to, especially I was a minerals kid growing up. It's like where the direction the stone grows out, that's where the streaks tend to go, or they tend to fracture towards that direction. That's pretty much what you see. And again, I'm not a mineralogist by any means. I just really enjoyed having rocks when I was a kid, and if you went to grab this and I add like a beige color to this, like a grayish tone, you get the marble. And then if I was drawing a kitchen, this is the countertop. This is their island. Because now we're HGTV, folks. HGTV. Okay, so welcome to Anna's kitchen. Okay, and let's see, you want to put another counter back here. This is where you have the. I know my perspective is cow right now. That's okay. That's okay. We're just having fun. So normally you have there's the sink back here. Can you tell I watch way too much HGTV? There's normally like a window and then some high cabinets. Hi, welcome to HGTV. I am a geologist and my wife hunts butterflies for a living. Our budget is $3.58 gajillion dollars. You're like, how? I watch enough HGTV just I can make fun of it. So I finally stopped. Now that I've been a homeowner for several years, I was like, it's not as glamorous as these folks make it sound. Okay, so here we have the island in on there, and then the way you can add some textures is just simply just drawing it really light. Now you want to be really careful um, when you're drawing textures at a distance because you don't want to make it look like it is broken. So it's just very light, and a lot of this is mostly done with color on the surface. But yeah, that's pretty much how you apply that on there. It's gonna be shaded there. I know, not very impressive, but that's okay. You guys get the gist of what I'm trying to say anyway. Um, okay. So with that, guys, I hope that this kind of makes sense. I will highly encourage you guys to go to like ArtStation or any of the like DeviantArt or any of those popular art sites and look up for texture artist portfolio. And what a lot of them tend to do is like they either do cubes. Oh, that is the most just special cube I've ever seen. That was awful. They do cubes or they do spheres, and then they will do a theme of textures. So some of them will do like, hey, this is what liquid will look like in this shape. They'll do like magma, and it's really cool. Like I said, I don't want to pull any of them up because again, that is their work, that is their copyright stuff. So I try not to pull it up, and if I do, I try to give them credit. Um, so yeah, so if you get a chance, look them up. And you will see what I mean about texture artists. And if this is something you're interested in, please take the time and just study. Just have what it's something is called focus studies. Focus studies is no, it's mostly used in like figure drawing, where you mostly only have a book of just you drawing hands, you drawing feet, but you can also have focus studies for materials, animals, textures, hair, whatever. So if this is something that fascinates you, simply go out. You have the technology in your own. If you don't have a laptop, you must have a smartphone. So at least everybody at least have a smartphone as far as I'm tracking. Most people do. And look how these artists are tackling textures. If you don't, go to your local public library and then ask them for like, hey, do you have any 3D texture books? I mean, the resources are there for you. You just have to go look for them. But I mean, anyway, guys, with that, I appreciate you guys joining me. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. And I will keep making these. I apologize. I had to stop for like 2 weeks. I kind of have to. As I mentioned, I'm currently still actively looking for work. And I had some freelance fall in my lap. So I've been trying to readjust my filming time along with my freelance time so that way I have time for both. And you guys know that I have 6 channels. So right now, what I'm trying to do is just to kind of film myself as much as I can what I'm trying to make time, but again, sometimes things don't work out. But anyway, guys, I appreciate it. Please leave comments if you have some good book examples that folks should look for. Please leave that in the comments. I appreciate it. But with that, guys, you all have a nice day, and I'll talk to you guys in the next lesson. Peace.